Hey guys, it's a beautiful day here at ScalpLogic. We have Joe and myself, and we are going to be talking about inks. And we touched a little bit about this, but not as much as I know that you guys want to know. So
just another ink video from us, guys. Isn't that what you wanted?
They really did, though, honestly.
Okay.
So Joe, we've talked about this many times. I would honestly say that you were at the start of it all. You really were.
When it comes to inks and the selling of inks and calling them SMP inks.
And I think that's
I was definitely
so
at the heart of it. Yeah. So my story goes around 2009, 2010 when I started.
Okay.
And I apprenticed for, back in those days, in 2010, let's say, it was 2 companies in the world. Because I was a client just before this, right? And I looked all over the place. And there was a company in the UK who kind of started this. And there was a company in Florida. And that's who I ended up going with and working with and all that apprenticing for. And so in the UK, they were using Indian inks, Talons or Pelican. I don't know the exact brand name.
Okay.
But I know for sure, because I spoke to so many artists that worked through those years, they might even still use those to this day. As their black ink, which is a little thicker. And then in Florida, in the USA, we were using Silverback Gray Wash series.
Okay, so now walk me through the story of your apprenticing. You're doing the Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off apprenticeship.
Oh yeah.
You walk in the back and you see the person that's trained you relabeling it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was like as perfect as that, like a scene out of a movie. I walked in, slipped in the end of the night. I was wearing all black. No. It was, yeah, like you said, the old school tattoo apprenticeship, the Mr. Miyagi. I paid my dues for sure. I cleaned, did the trash, all that kind of stuff. But I learned how to make needles, solder my own needles.
Yes.
I learned how to take apart machines. And I learned all the little intricacies of
that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely nice. And I also learned inks, a lot about inks, the color theory, the color wheel, and all that kind of stuff. We bought bags of pigments. But I always thought this guy just bought tattoo inks and rebottled them. And yeah, I don't know if I walked in one day or if he just told me flat out one day. But yeah, it took me a little while, a good year or so, where I was working with him for him, where he finally said, yeah, we just, we pour it in these bottles. We have these labels over them. And they called them smart pigments, I believe, back in the day.
So with all of that knowledge, now you took your talents to Rochester.
Yeah, so we're talking like 2012-ish. Okay. We had a disagreement in Florida. We had to go different directions. So I said, cool. I'm going to upstate New York, and I found a guy. Essentially, I was looking for a money guy that could market me because I had this concept, I had this awesome idea, and I knew how to do it. And I said, man, here you go. I'm not going to show you how to make the needles just yet, but here's the ink. And yeah, he was already, this guy lied to me and said he was in business for like 6 months or a year. A guy named Bryce. I'm sure if anyone in the industry, you probably know of him or heard of him. And it didn't take long before he, the Silverback Gray Wash ink series that we were using, it went like light, medium, dark. He renamed it for his company like soft ash, soft coal, this and this, 3 different levels of shades, and he called them SMP inks, and he said, don't use tattoo ink, use my ink. And I was like, seeing, giving that information and seeing him turn around, and he was making $10,000 a month right away. So
and the point really was to get away from the tattoo world, even though it really was. Still
the point was to innovate and make this awesome concept, which was always where my heart was. And then obviously the other point in business is to make money.
Yes.
So that was his deal, and this was my deal. And so I was younger, I was a little naive, I was very naive, and I just said, you know what, I have a lot to learn when it comes to business. Let me just swallow, what I have to say and just keep doing what I'm doing. Yes. Looking back now, I didn't know what it would turn into. It's, when it comes to business and selling yourself, you're supposed to hype it up a little bit, right? But there's a balance. And when you cross the line of lying to people outright and saying, hey, don't use tattoo ink, use my ink, and this is proprietary. That was his line. He's like, I invented this, I had this vision, and it's proprietary. That word proprietary, and still to this day, here we are, 2020, and people, I don't know how many companies followed in suit. They got that information, and a week later they're selling their own inks. I don't know how the market is still fooled. I don't know how artists, right? That's where you and I are baffled.
That's
people
really
that
hard,
want to learn how to do this for a living. They'll hear our videos, they'll hear what I have to say, and still I see them, promoting an ink that they're bragging that they use an $80 bottle of ink. It just has someone's label over it. And I'm not knocking that. If that's your game, you know that you're buying ink and you think branding is more important, that's not what I'm saying. Right? There's some companies that have great branding. If your goal is to have better branding and that's why you spend more money for the ink, cool. But if you think you're using something different than tattoo ink and there's something proprietary going on, it's just not true, right?
And there are cool inks out there too, like the hemp ink.
There are cool, yeah. I can't remember the name of the hemp infused ink, but that's an awesome concept. You know, that price point is definitely up there, but for good reason.
That's
you know, a lot of
I
research and development
well.
into hemp infused ink. I don't have an opinion myself. I haven't really tested it myself. I'm a huge advocate for the hemp industry, for hemp in general. I think there's so many medicinal benefits to it, so I can't see it not being good. Is it worth the money and the all the work to get there? I don't know.
What I have to say is watching, you know, even watching your videos before I came on board, you were always very honest about ink. And I think that was something for me that was very insightful, because I could see every other company, you know, marketing, okay, I've got this special stuff, and you were very just straightforward about it. Yeah. And I mean, when you're looking for inks, what do you look for in your inks?
Okay, so again, I'll just use the example in this industry because it's been a prime example. It's Indian inks versus, let's say, silverback or dynamic. I know a lot of people watching our videos know that I've been advocating dynamic for a long time. I'll just, for lack of a better term, I'll call it the more watered down ink. And the Indian inks have more viscosity, much thicker.
Thicker. Okay.
Yeah, almost like a motor oil, right? So, you know, and in the tattoo world, same thing. Like, there's artists that love either one for both reasons, right? For multitude of reasons. One of the downsides to the thicker Indian inks is that the color doesn't stay. This color doesn't stay true. Huh. Right?
Okay.
And also just, I mean, using my logic, right? Yes. I don't have any science to back this, but a thicker ink, and we're trying to go superficial in our insertion, just sit right at the top. It's gonna be a lot harder to stick a nice little tiny dot at the top with a thicker ink, right? More watered down, maybe I need more punches at it, which we do, a little build-up process. But I'll definitely look for a more, again, lack of a better term, watered down version, an ink that's more, not as thick, not as troublesome for me, in other words, yeah?
Interesting, okay.
When it comes to the ingredients, I know that was a good question you had asked me earlier. You know, what are the ingredients that I look for in the inks? Because dynamic is very much like Starbright. If I look at the ingredients, I don't know. I would be surprised if there'd be many differences. Essentially, you're doing water, or aqua as it's normally called, on the back of, it sounds nicer, I guess. And then witch hazel and or rubbing alcohol. Okay. Right? And those, excuse me, you need an alcohol to act as a carrier, because you're carrying the pigment, which is typically what I like to use, carbon-based. There's tons of ways to make black ink. We talked about that, like how to make it in a prison, which we might do one day. It was a cool video I saw on YouTube.
If you want to see that, comment.
It's really easy. Essentially, the guy made a wick out of toilet paper, put it in hair grease, and lit that thing on fire till just the whole thing inflamed. He encased it in like a tasty cake box, and he scraped the soot after it flamed out, after it burnt out. Scraped the soot, the black soot, mixed that with water, and that was his ink. Boom, he was tattooing people. Okay. So again, tons of ways to make the ink. I'm not promoting or advocating any particular kind of ink. All I'm saying is, if you believe that SMP ink is actually different from tattoo ink, it's just not true.
And it's not as complicated as it makes it seem, I think, in the industry. We get so many different trainings coming, and people are like, oh, what do you mean I have to mix this ink with this ink? And it's just so complicated.
I mean, back to the gentleman I met in New York, right? I told him, hey, you know, we're going to start training. We were kind of putting our minds together. Okay, this is what I want to train. This is my intention. This is how you do it. Boom, boom, boom. And he didn't like how easy I made the ink. I said, hey, you need a bottle of black ink, and then you dilute it to a certain shade based on what you need. You know, here's each ethnicity. It's really simple. Yeah. And he's like, I don't like it. It's too easy. And I was like, what? I thought easy is awesome. And he's like, no, we need to make it a little more confusing for people, right? It can't be straightforward, because then other people are going to do it, which they eventually did anyway. Yes. But again, you know, it's is your intention to innovate purely, or innovate plus make some money, or just make some money? I mean, we all have different intentions, right? But you know, it's just silliness. Yeah.
I agree.
Cool.
So let me ask you a final question.
Sure.
Would you say that, let's say that you had a, what's more important, inks or needles?
Oh, 100% needles.
Explain why.
So, excuse me. So let me break down the three elements you take to do it. So tattoo machine. Okay, if you gave me a crappy tattoo machine, $20 tattoo machine, as long as it makes the needle go up and down, I can do my finest work. Huh. Maybe it's not as easy for me, but I can achieve my finest result. Okay. If you give me inferior tattoo ink, let's say, maybe it's not sterilized, it could give an infection to somebody, or maybe it's just not a premium pure black ink. It has some additives. you're not going to see, typically, you're not going to see the downside to that the day of, the week of, the month of. Typically throughout the years, yeah, you're going to see that, oh my gosh, that's an inferior ink.
Okay.
Now, so I can still give you a nice result. Some
Okay.
of my best results with an ink that's not great. Okay, now if you give me needles that I don't like or that I don't use, I can't do my finest work. I just can't. I can't get it in there. I can give you something close, but it's not going to be my finest work. The needles, what I'm trying to say, there's nothing more important than the needles. There's nothing more important. The shoes are like, I'm a big basketball fan. If you put LeBron James in some crappy shoes with like bad soles, bad padding, he's still LeBron James. He's still going to do great.
It's true.
Right? The artist is the artist is what I'm telling you.
I love that.
The machine isn't going to make somebody LeBron, isn't going to make someone Picasso or Van Gogh because your machine's nicer. It's just not going to happen. But the needles can make or break you, 100%. 100%. So, webinar coming soon.
Yes, we do have a webinar coming on needles and ink, so let us know about if you guys are interested in signing up for that. And I think that hit all the questions.
Cool.
And if you guys do have, questions, comment below or send us messages.
This is like my favorite topic. I love it.
Really?
One thing I do want to say, with all love and respect, truth has a tendency to outlast lies. And I'm a little embarrassed to leave those videos up that I made probably, 2.5 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago. I had like more of a stamped on hairline, all that kind of stuff.
But that just shows the evolution and just like you starting from the beginning. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely does. But nonetheless, the information that I gave
Yes.
there, because I spoke from the heart, I spoke truth, it's still relevant, and I still stand behind that. So check that out, guys. I hope you got a lot of insight on this video. I'd love to hear if you have any comments or any of your favorite brands. Let's talk about it.